Pope Leo has given his first Sunday blessing to crowds in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. Tens of thousands attended as the new Pope called for lasting peace in Ukraine, an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, and the release of hostages and the delivery of humanitarian aid. Leo also praised the recent truce between India and Pakistan. He'll be formally inaugurated during a mass service a week from today. Let's bring in our correspondent there, Giulia Saudelli. She joins us from St. Peter's Square in Vatican City. Giulia, good to see you. Now, how did the new Pope mark Sunday prayers and what did he say?
Yes, as you mentioned, he spoke quite a while about world peace. He said, remembering that just this week was the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, he called for an end to all wars across the world. And he specifically mentioned the war in Ukraine, where he called for durable peace. He mentioned the situation in the Gaza Strip, where he said the civilian population, he says, needs to receive humanitarian assistance and the hostages need to be released. An immediate ceasefire has to come about. And he also welcomed, as you said, the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, but in general, a clear message of peace coming from Pope Leo XIV on his first address. And you can tell that the Pope is slowly easing into his new role. He felt a little less nervous out on the balcony on St. Peter's Basilica compared to his first arrival on that balcony just a couple of days ago when he was elected Pope. And we saw him lingering a little on that balcony at the end of the prayer and at the end of his speech, saying hi to the crowd that was saying hi back and really sort of soaking in the fact that he really is now the new pontiff.
Giulia mentioned those crowds. We've seen the images of the thousands there. How did they also take it in?
Yes, up to 100,000 people were here in the square and on the connecting streets attending the service with the Pope. And it was a really joyous atmosphere. Everyone was really happy to be here to see the new Pope for the first time. We heard a lot of chants of Viva il Papa, long live the Pope. And this is also coincidentally the jubilee of the marching bands. So there were dozens of marching bands playing their music here in the square, people clapping along. So it was really an atmosphere of joy, and also the message of peace that the Pope wanted to make clear was really well received among the crowds. It was something that people really supported and congratulated the Pope on.
So what lies ahead for him over the next few days?
Yes, so tomorrow he has a scheduled appointment with all the journalists who have covered the death and the funeral of Pope Francis and the conclave that elected now Pope Leo XIV. This is something that popes have been doing after they have been elected in the last few times, and he's going to meet really the thousands of journalists who have attended this event. And normally a few interesting anecdotes come from the popes when they talk to the world media. And then actually the very big event is next Sunday, May 18th, when the Pope will hold his inaugural Mass here in St. Peter's Square. Over 200,000 people are expected to attend, but also authorities and officials from all around the world, as it is also really the coming into power of not only a religious leader, but also a head of state here of the Vatican State.
DW's Giulia Saudelli reporting from the Vatican City. Thank you very much.
And let's bring in DW correspondent Jack Parrock. Hey, Jack, this is a very big moment, obviously, for the Pope. We've seen him looking very modest for the days since he was first elected, now addressing this large assembly of people in the square.
Exactly. People are really excited to see this first prayers. I think this moment that we're seeing in the Vatican City, down at St. Peter's, is the practicality of what he has to do. He has to go onto that balcony and lead these prayers every Sunday. Over the last couple of days, we've seen him visit the tomb of his predecessor, Pope Francis. He's also been outlining his priorities to the cardinals, talking about this continuation of trying to reform the internal workings of the Catholic Church. But what we're seeing here, this set of prayers, this is what a pope has to do, has to lead the 1.4 billion Catholic faithful in their prayers, in their religious activities.
This is going to be an active pontiff by all indications. He was only elected days ago, and yet since that time, he has conveyed many messages, some of them political. What do you make of this?
Yeah, he's been right out on the streets very quickly. He hasn't hidden away in any sense. We can see that he's going from the sort of optics, the choice of the dress that he wore, the red cape when he was first brought out onto the balcony. We can see that he's probably going to return to some of the more traditional conservative values, but he's talking about this progression into the modern world. He's talked specifically about AI, and he talked about the fact that he chose the name Leo XIV because Leo XIII was Pope at the change between the 19th to the 20th century when the Industrial Revolution was happening, when we saw light bulbs come in, for instance. So much technology was changing then. Pope Leo XIV says he's aware of how important this moment in human history is because of the development of AI. So he's really already seeing himself as a pope in the current climate. And I think that's really interesting.
You do not choose your name as pope lightly. That is certainly the case here. You've spent a lot of time in Rome talking to Vatican officials. How pleased are they, if that's the right word to even use, with what the new pope is saying and doing?
A lot of the people I've been speaking to, Michael, are actually very pleased with this pope. There was a lot of concern about who would take over, whether they would rock the boat too much. And a lot of the people that I've spoken to say that this is firstly, a very well-liked man. He's been sort of had this impression of being able to talk to people, of being welcomed, of being accessible before he's taken the papacy. He was a well-liked cardinal. He also doesn't have too much scandal around him, which is not that some of the other cardinals are necessarily embroiled in scandal, but they have certain issues that would have prevented them from taking the papacy. And I think the one issue was that he was American, but what we're seeing is that he's slightly veering away from any touch with the American side of things and sticking with the church values.
That leads really to one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because so much is being made in public anyway about the fact that he's the first American pope. It leads all discussion about this particular pontiff. And yet I'm sure there's so much more to say about him. What are you hearing about who he is in terms of a character and whether that character is right and appropriate for these times?
So, born in Chicago, obviously he's American, but he's also, in some senses, an immigrant. He moved to Peru and has taken on Peruvian citizenship, spent much of his life outside the United States. He's also part of the Augustinian order, which is, sometimes when we talk about this stuff, it can be quite confusing to people that aren't aware of how the Catholic Church works. But the Augustinian order is one that believes in using the sort of mystery of the faith, but connecting it in modern day life. So he has this sort of connection with theological ideas connecting with how we really live. And I think that's what we're seeing in some senses. He, only in the last couple of weeks, had sent tweets critical of J.D. Vance's suggestion that love can be ordered in a hierarchy. And Pope Leo had said, well, Cardinal Provost, as he was then, said, no, it needs to be relatively equal, that everybody should love equally. So we know that he has the potential to come out and be quite political. But at the moment, I think his priority and what we're seeing is he's going to just go through the motions of setting up and starting his papacy, and these prayers are part of that.
We just saw the Pope waving goodbye to all of those people assembled in St. Peter's Square. And again, he will be inaugurated formally in a Mass a week from today. That is Jack Parrock, our DW specialist on this issue. Many thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Michael.